Welcome to Moving Through and Beyond, a podcast dedicated to sharing inspired journeys of redefining life, vision, and purpose after immense hardship and grief. My goal with this podcast is to give you hope and to let my guest journeys inspire you to make the choice to keep looking up. I'm your host, Carey Conley. Hi, everybody. I'm Carey Conley, the host of Moving Through and Beyond, the podcast. And I get the honor to bring on people who have moved through, obviously, this is called Moving Through and Beyond, some sort of major adversity in their life. And they're willing to not only share their story and what they've been through, but they are using their story to impact the world. And that is my friend, fellow speaker out of Denver, Colorado, which is where I'm from, Laura Stack. So, Laura, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Carey. I sure appreciate it.
Yeah. Laura and I, what's so interesting is we're both from Denver, but we've never really, I don't think we've ever met in person, right?
No, we've got to fix that. Maybe you can come to our summer conference or something.
Okay. Well, let me know about that. I would love that. Yes. Yeah. But we have a lot of mutual friends, and people kept saying to me, you really need to meet Laura Stack. You need to meet Laura Stack. She's a speaker, very, very recognized speaker. And I know in the past you were known for productivity, effectiveness, right?
Yes, that's right. So, Productivity Pro, that was my moniker for 30 years.
How did you come to doing that?
Well, funny enough, I grew up in the military. So my father is incredibly structured and organized and disciplined. And that really was how I was raised. It was very natural
in your DNA
to move into that field of time management, planning, prioritization. It was a very natural fit.
Yeah. So did you work in the corporate world doing that for a while before you stepped into speaking?
Well, I spoke for Career Track. It's a public seminar company. Before that, I was in a management training program for TRW. So I traveled around. I did several rotations with them before I quickly realized the corporate world was not for me, and got on the road in 1992 with Career Track. I know, it's crazy how long ago that was. Teaching time management, how to organize your life, it used to be how to file your paper, unbelievably.
How funny is that?
Oh my gosh.
Now it's learning how to put time management around how much time we spend on social media and emails.
Yes. And devices and staying organized and apps and all that. A lot of the principles are the same, but I'm really not teaching that a lot anymore, but I'm so grateful. I believe it's a gift from God that I had the ability to spend 30 years learning that, because knowing the industry, speaking, media, events, branding, I already had the business acumen, which I know just helped me ramp up incredibly fast. And I'm so grateful for that on this mission field now.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how you and I both can look back of our journey over the past 20, 30 years and connect the dots? I've been known as the vision expert. And the only reason I've been known is because that's what I taught. My history is in network marketing and had a big team of women, and I had to teach them why they needed to have a very powerful written vision or else they weren't going to make it. Nice. And did that for 20 years and then decided, hey, I think other people need this curriculum. So 10 years ago, I started doing that, not knowing what was coming in my life. And looking back on it now, I know what God was preparing me for.
Right.
Because
and we couldn't have known. We, didn't know. He did, of course, that this would happen to us. And he was preparing us, maybe not our hearts, but our talents, our gifts, our abilities, and the ability to really pick up the ball and run with it, in a way that we never knew we would have to. But I'm with you there, sister. Just so grateful for the background.
Right. So what I'm referring to right now, you all who are listening, is that Laura and I, unfortunately, have both lost sons to suicide. I lost my 25-year-old son, 25 or 26, I forget now, almost 6 years ago. And I know you lost your Johnny, what's it been, 3 years now?
Yeah, about 3.5. He was 19. Yeah, we lost him in November 2019, right before COVID.
Yep. Yeah, I remember the month.
Yeah.
Different ways and different reasons. And what Laura has done with her mission is turned it into a nonprofit called Johnny's Ambassadors, which I want you to tell everybody about. And what you're speaking on is the dangers of marijuana.
Yes.
How this happened to your son. So tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, I mean, I was so ignorant about marijuana. I used it myself when I was like 17. It was Jim's basement weed. It was nothing. It was like
Yeah.
Easter grass. And my son, Johnny, told us at 14 years old, when it was legalized here in Colorado, the first state to do so, he was in ninth grade. He came home from a party and said he had used it. There was a boy there who had a brother who was 18, had a med card, and had it at the party. And he said all the boys wanted to try to get high, and he had used it. And I guess, I just thought that he was using the same stuff I was using when I was 17. Like, I was clueless, ignorant, completely uneducated about today's high THC products. I didn't know vapes and wax and dabs and shatter and edibles. I just thought he was using the grass. So I just didn't have a sense of urgency around it. I told him don't do that again, because he had a brilliant mind. He got a perfect SAT score in math, 800 out of 800. I said, that will ruin your mind. Don't use that ever again. Well, 5 years later, at the age of 19, he had become psychotic. He thought the mob was after him. I had no idea what was going on. We now know through the research that it was cannabis-induced psychosis, that it caused him to be delusional. And sadly, he took his own life, having written 3 days before that in a journal that everybody knew everything about him. And it's tragic and preventable. And I just look back on how little I knew and how much different I would have acted had I known what I know now. And now I'm almost desperate to just, tell other parents, because they're just as ignorant. Everybody thinks it's just the old stuff. But now I'm very learned on youth brain development, on the endocannabinoid system, on the science. I mean, and I have an MBA. Like, I didn't know any of this. So we have a scientific advisory board on our nonprofit, and they have helped us create a curriculum. And now my speaking has turned on its ear 180 degrees. And now I am out speaking in schools, which I never in a million years thought. I mean, I was terrified of. I would look at all the speakers at National Speakers Association who spoke to teens, and I'm like, oh my God, you're so brave. You're such a hero.
That twice today. I've had the opportunity. I've been talking to people today about how I went a couple weeks ago to speak at a high school.
Yes.
And I told them, tough crowd, you guys, because, you can't read what they're thinking, and they're not really interacting with you. And so it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So
totally
it's a whole different world. Yeah.
Standing up in front of 1,000 or 2,000 kids at a huge high school in a gym. I mean, wow. But I feel that my story of Johnny, I weave in what happened to him and pictures of him in with the science. And it's actually quite riveting. And you'd think they'd be really squirrely and squirmy, but they're not. You can hear a pin drop.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, the administrators are pretty shocked about it. But that's what we're doing, Carey. After he died, it was COVID. I was basically in a fetal position for 6 months, as I know you understand.
Yes.
And I wrote a blog post. Actually, it's a Facebook post, and just said, have you ever heard of dabbing? Public service announcement. This is what my son was doing. Wow. And I put some links in, and it got 21,000 shares. And I just knew right then that was my mission. That was my goal in this life, to save other young people. And so 6 months later, we had our nonprofit stood up, so that by the time COVID was over, I was off and running.
Girl, that is amazing. Yeah. I want to talk to you more about that at some point, about starting the nonprofit, because I've thought about that many times myself.
Yeah.
just wasn't the right.
It was a huge blessing COVID ended up being for us because,
right.
you know,
Gave you the
my
time.
speaking business had been canceled anyway. It's not like I was
Where are you
doing
going?
anything,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Right.
But I'd written 8 books before that. And for me, writing is very healing. And so I was desperately afraid I was going to forget what happened because the previous 5 years had been such a blur with Johnny's marijuana addiction and our attempts to save him. So I started writing it and came up with a 300-page book. And that's kind of what started everything. The dangerous truth about today's marijuana, Johnny Stack's life and death story. So now, oh my gosh, we just had a huge article in the Washington Post yesterday. I've been on Dr. Phil, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, PBS, People Magazine. I mean, I know how to use media to move the needle, and it's working. It's working. The public perception and the harms of youth who use these 80-90% crazy poisonous THC products. People are finally understanding, oh my gosh, this isn't the same stuff. One dab today is like 50 joints from when I was 17. And that's something people can't really wrap their heads around until, you know, I do a presentation and they are on the ground. Parents are just, they have no idea.
Well, obviously, I know nothing about this either. And you know, I wonder how many parents really don't want to know, but I think we're getting into a world where they're kind of waking up going, you know, this is a thing.
To know. You know, some parents tell me, and they don't mean to be mean, but I get it all the time. Oh, you know, I don't need to go to that presentation because
I wonder,
you know, my kid goes to church. I'm like, well, so did mine. Mine loved Jesus very much. We're a Christian family. We taught Sunday school. Like he grew up in the church. And then others are like, oh, well, you know, that would never happen to my kid because he's a straight A student. You know, she's brilliant. I'm like, mine never got a B until his senior year of high school. You know, or they'll say, oh, my kid's an athlete. She's really involved in school. And you know, on and on. Like people just think all these protective factors are going to save their child. And it's like, you know, Christian children make really bad decisions. Jewish children make really bad decisions. It doesn't matter if your kid goes to temple or is a state scholar or is the president of DECA. None of that matters. Every one of our children is a target of the marijuana industry, and they're all susceptible.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, you know, our sons were very different in their journeys. My son was not doing drugs that I know of. It was a whole different thing. And I think it's what you're talking about, Laura, is so needed to say, right? Because my son would have been the last person on the planet that you would have thought would take his life.
See?
Right? Because from all outward appearances, he had a great job here in Arizona, great friends, very outgoing, very loved. You know, he was just seriously struggling with his identity and trying to follow his own path. And I believe just feeling so afraid of making those changes.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important that you're saying that we have to wake up. You do not know. They can be showing you all the signs of, I got this, I'm excelling at school, I've got friends. You do not know.
They turn around. And I mean, so many parents that I've talked with, sadly, there are over 600 now in our private group it's called Parents of Children with Cannabis-Induced Psychosis. 600 right now who are in mental hospitals with children in psychosis. And that's just our tiny little nonprofit. I mean, that is just barely the tip of the iceberg. And they never thought, oh my gosh, you know, I just discovered my kid's been using marijuana for the past year. Oh my gosh, I've discovered my daughter's been vaping for 2 years. I mean, just so much shock. And they hide things, whether it's emotions like your son, whether it's drugs like my son. And I just wish, you know, I had a program last night and there were maybe 50 people there in a community conversation in Billings, Montana, big city. And it's heartbreaking. It's like, why aren't there 250 people packing this gym?
Right.
Because they don't think it applies to them.
Yeah.
And then they only care when something bad happens in their lives. And we have to fix that. We have to be proactive and prevent suicide and prevent drug use.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you tell these parents and the kids on how to prevent it?
Well, the programs are totally different. So I have a parent adult presentation that's 18 years and over, teens must attend with an adult, because I show drug photos. I show how kids are using. I demonstrate in video dabbing, and I show dispensary photos. I mean, it's very graphic. And we never do that in the kids program. The last thing I want to do is attempt to make a kid afraid or sad. I never use scare tactics. I've never had a child leave my assembly. I pride myself on that. I'm not there to make them sad. It's not about Johnny's suicide. They do know that he died, and I do weave his story in, but, I'm not there as their mom, to be like, don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. I am very educational, fact-based, research-based, and kids really resonate with that. I have them, they come up after. I just got a hug yesterday from one, and she just said, you've really changed my entire perspective on this entire issue, and I thank you. Because I really want them to understand why THC makes you high, how it interacts with the formation of an adolescent brain, and what it does to you. And I show them MRIs and use science and facts. We just got a new study yesterday from the National Institutes of Health, 5 decades of data, 6.9 million people. We now know that ages 21 to 30 young men who have schizophrenia, 30% of them would never have had schizophrenia had they not used marijuana. This study just came out for 2021, 30%, ages 21 to 30. So we have to explain to them, oh, do you know why? That's because the male brain doesn't finish forming until 28 to 30. And it's extremely harmful in a crucial period of brain development. That's what they like. So I would stick with that. Be educated, get knowledgeable yourself, understand potency, understand dosage, understand CB1, cannabinoid receptors. How do they interact with the brain? Understand the outcomes, be able to speak intelligently rather than just tell your child, don't do it like I did. That doesn't work. And for the parents, I do share Johnny's story because they need to know what to watch for. They need to know, gosh, if I were a parent now, here's what I would do, and so it is a little more shocking, but they're adults, and I can level with them as parents because
they need to know.
They need to know so they don't lose their kid, and they have to have more urgency around it, unfortunately, than I did.
Yeah. So what would be a couple of things you'd tell them to watch for?
Well, like never allow your child to charge their own phone at night. You must charge their phone in your bedroom.
Okay.
That's when they're getting in trouble. Buy them an alarm clock. You should be tracking their car, and it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you don't trust them. The reality is you are their parent. You're not their buddy. You're not their friend. You're not here because you want them to like you. You are there to keep them safe and to keep them alive. And you need to know where they are. They don't have privacy until they're 18 years old. Their phone is your phone. And you must have all the passwords on their phone, and you do random checks on their phone, especially in their Instagram, in the For Your Eyes Only section that is password protected that most parents don't know about. So I show them how to get into the apps. I mean, just so many things that we talk about with parents, and they're startled. They're very startled. It's just so dangerous right now. These days are so dangerous.
So dangerous. Do you feel like they're listening to you, Laura?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes. There's a lot of crying in the parent presentation.
I would imagine.
Some of them are buying marijuana for their child because they thought because they just bought the industry narrative, right? That, oh, it helps you chill out and it helps with stress. And, their kid has a little bit of anxiety before a presentation and they're like, here, smoke a joint. And they have no idea that they are changing the formation of their child's brain and harming their child. So then they're very upset. The kids are the most impacted. They're kind of a forced audience because I'm coming to the middle school and I get all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So there's 500 of them there, whether they want to be there or not.
Yeah, I was going to say they have to be there.
That's what I prefer. I mean, teens are my jam. I'd much rather do 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. But they come up and say, I feel more brave now that you've shared all this because I feel like I'm smarter about this and I'm going to go talk to my best friend who's using and tell her that I'm concerned and that she should stop. Or they'll say, I'm using. they tell me everything. And
yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, they'll say, thanks to what you shared with me, I think I could have a problem. And I'm going to try to get some help. Like that's the very best thing they could ever say to me. Such a gift.
So big question for you, because now we're both grandmothers, right?
Yes.
How do you see having these conversations with these kids super early on?
Oh, very early on. I mean, 1 in 10 of our middle schoolers in Colorado is addicted. That's the age of initiation. I go talk to the high school and some of the high schoolers are like, why are you here? You're missing the boat. They started
go
back
talk
in
to the
6th
kids.
grade.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not too early to talk to them at 10, 11, 12. My kids, I don't have to worry about because they're on our board of directors. Like, they know as much as I do because they've lived it. So, it's my grandkids, right. They'll be the ones talking to them. I probably won't have to do I will, but not as much as they will because they know just as much as I do. But in general, we need to set very clear no use rules. Some parents don't actually have the conversation. They just assume that their kids think that they're not supposed to use drugs. Like they just go, I just thought that they knew that I wouldn't approve of drugs. Well, did you ever sit them down specifically and say, you are not allowed? No. Well, I just thought, isn't that common sense? No. And silence implies permission. You must specifically tell them that they are not allowed to use any mind-altering substance, right? Whether it's tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, whatever the drug is, until they're of legal age, which is 21, not 18, right? 21. And then maybe by the time they're 21, they won't want to. I mean, that's our hope because the young women's brains form till they're 25 and 28 to 30. So being legal, like if I could make rules about making marijuana legal, it would be 30. If it were me making the rules, right? Not that it's never guaranteed to be harmless for everyone or anyone, but the brain development is at least completed by 30.
Right. So it's one thing to tell a kid, don't do this, it's not allowed.
Yeah.
Are there tools that you give them to when they are around the other kids and that's being brought up to them and being offered to them? What do you tell them to do?
Well, we practice stating your boundaries. That is exactly what happened to Johnny. It was handed to him and they said, hit this. And I hadn't practiced any boundary setting with him because I didn't think he was going to use any drugs.
Right.
So we teach the 3S method: state your reasons, suggest something else, and stand your ground. And we actually talk about what to say and how to practice it so that you're prepared when someone's handing that to you. The problem is that people are caught off guard and the kids are, and they look foolish, right? And rather than being able to say whatever it is, no, I'm good and say what they're going to say, they get flustered. And so it's really important as a parent, a grandparent, a cousin, aunt, uncle, whatever, to practice with a young person so that they're prepared in those situations.
Yeah. So good. So good. Because I didn't have any of that growing up. And surely, when it became an age of where you were trying to find your identity through your friends, you wanted to be the one that you didn't want to be the one that went, I'm not doing it. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's hard. We talk about that. It's hard to be at a party and everyone else is using. And if you're going to choose not to use, and that's how we frame it. We never actually say, don't do it. Me. I mean, as a parent, you should. Absolutely. But when I'm doing assemblies, I look at it as this is what I believe to be very important information that I'm going to share with you that is one more tool in your toolkit that I hope you consider when you're making these important decisions. And then when at the end we bring it, if you're going to choose not to use, so we keep coming back to that this is a decision that you need to make and that you need to go into before you get to the party. So that you can stay true to yourself.
Yeah, so good. So what's next for Johnny's Ambassadors, Laura?
Oh my gosh. My fall is already booked. I'm already pretty much sold out until November. So I just want to get in front of as many teens as I can. I'm so obsessed. We have over 100 certified trainers now because I can't be everywhere all the time.
Wow.
So for teachers, we charge them nothing if they teach health class or biology or any kind of substance use, nurses, school resource officers, anybody teaching in the school, we give them our curriculum.
Okay, so great.
We teach them how to use it and try to multiply my hands a little bit that way. We have a big annual conference we do every July for 7-10 Day, which is Dab Day, which is oil spelled upside down. So that's kind of a weed culture thing.
Okay.
So we have a big conference that's hybrid, June 10th and 11th, filmed in Denver with live instructors, all doctors, psychiatrists, etc., and then live streamed around the U.S. We had about 200 people last year. We're hoping for twice that this year.
Wow.
So, yeah, we're just doing everything we can. All of our resources on our website are free. Did I say free? Yes, free. That's what our nonprofit does is we take all of our donations, our program fees, and we create materials, magazines that we ship out. We have a suspension alternative for kids who get caught using marijuana at school. We have posters. I mean, every single thing that you can imagine in the way of marijuana education we provide. And if you go to our website, johnnysambassadors.org, it's all free. So you can take it and use it in your school, in your drug courts, in your diversion, in your intervention programs, in your education, in your government agencies, anywhere you're using marijuana education, you can use our materials.
Laura, this is so great. And I shared the same mission with you that we just need to save these kids in so many ways. So absolutely. I'm honored to be in the presence of you and what you're doing in this world. For these kids. And if I can ever help you in any way.
Your mission is just as valuable. I mean, and that's the beautiful thing is that we all sadly are moving through our own sorrows, but using it to help reach other people and keep it from happening to others. And what you're doing is so important. There's so much sadness and so many mental health issues out there. And you are saving kids every day. With your message also, everybody comes at it from a different place. And I think that's
totally,
awesome, that you've taken that and that's part of your journey now.
Well, I'm honored, like I said, to be aligned with people like you that are coming at it with different stories and different missions. But the same bottom line foundation is to raise up a whole new healthy generation of kids.
That's right.
Right.
Amen, sister.
So I appreciate you taking the time to be here. I know how busy you are.
Thanks, Carey.
Right on your coattails.
Yes.
And I hope that when I come back to Denver, we can get together.
I would love that.
Yeah. So thank you. I appreciate you so very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of Moving Through and Beyond. I'm Carey Conley, reminding you to keep looking up. If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, please share it with a friend or a family member. In order to be successful on this mission, I can't do it alone. Connect with me at www.careyconley.com. And don't forget to sign up for my weekly Do It On Purpose newsletter. Let's build this life-giving vision movement together to end this epidemic, save lives, and create purpose.